Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that nigga dig up his dome. Yeah, that nigga eat me out.
Hey yo, babe, my name is Pink. I made him go get that ink. Let him eat that pretty.
Girl, I'm never leaving you the alone. You gave me that good ass meow meow. Is you crazy?
In August 2023, a popular TikTok couple shared their final dance video together, laughing as they performed a synchronized routine that had become their signature. Within 24 hours, both would lie dead near their apartment, victims of 13 gunshot wounds in a killing that shocked their growing social media community. Sequoia Lamar, a 20-year-old dancer and hair braider, and her 24-year-old girlfriend Di'Asia Morris had been building their online presence by sharing glimpses into their relationship. Their lives were cut short in a senseless act of violence. The alleged shooter wasn't a stranger, it was their neighbor, 23-year-old Tyashun Stevens. What began as a dispute over car tires escalated into a deadly confrontation that would leave two young women dead and their families devastated. This wasn't just another tragic headline. It was the end of a love story that had captivated thousands of followers. In Huntsville, Alabama, 20-year-old Sequoia Lamar was building a future filled with promise. Blessed with natural rhythm and creativity, Sequoia had transformed her passion for dance into a growing social media presence. Her TikTok videos displayed not just technical skill but infectious joy. Beyond dance, Sequoia possessed a remarkable talent for hair braiding, creating intricate designs that demonstrated her artistic vision. Sequoia regularly invited followers into her daily life through candid vlogs. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a little snippet of my birthday vlog, she announced in one video, her enthusiasm palpable. Her followers connected with these glimpses into her everyday experiences, the small triumphs and minor frustrations that made her relatable. Beyond dance and hairstyling, Sequoia revealed another passion, cooking. Today your girl is going to be doing a cooking video for y'all. Period. I'm going to show y'all how to make the noodle bowl, but I ain't using no noodles, she announced with characteristic confidence. Her cooking videos weren't just about food but about creating moments that brought people together. At the center of Sequoia's world was her relationship with 24-year-old Di'Asia Monique Morris. Born on March 20, 1999, Di'Asia, affectionately known as Moa, had attended J.O. Johnson High School and worked at Aeropostale. What began as a romantic connection had evolved into something that captivated their growing audience. An authentic partnership built on genuine affection, shared humor, and mutual support. Their YouTube channel became a window into their dynamic, particularly through Q&A videos where their comfort with each other shone through unfiltered conversations. During one such session, they playfully bantered about their experiences, finishing each other's sentences and sharing knowing looks. These unscripted moments built a connection with viewers who saw in them relationship goals and authentic representation. No one watching these videos could have predicted that on Tuesday, August 29, 2023, the couple's shared laughter would be permanently silenced. The morning began like any other in their Huntsville apartment. By 10:40 a.m., both women would be lying dead outside their apartment, their bodies riddled with bullets fired at close range. The news spread rapidly through local media. Just in the last hour, we have learned more details about the deadly shooting on Bunnell Drive in Huntsville today, one reporter announced gravely. Huntsville police identified the two victims as Di'Asia Morris and Sequoia Lamar. Police say officers responded to calls about the shooting around 10:40 this morning. Behind the clinical language of police reports lay a shocking truth. The person who had methodically fired 13 rounds into the young women wasn't a stranger but their own neighbor, 23-year-old Tyashun Stevens. Law enforcement officers descended on the Bunnell Drive area in an intense search for Stevens, who had fled the scene immediately after the shooting. For weeks, residents later revealed, tensions had been building between the couple and Stevens over an issue that would seem inconsequential to most: car tires. What specifically about the tires had caused friction remains unclear, but neighbors reported overhearing previous heated exchanges. The timeline of that Tuesday morning reveals how quickly violence erupted. At approximately 10:40 a.m., multiple residents called 911, their voices urgent as they reported a series of gunshots echoing through the apartment complex. When Huntsville police officers arrived minutes later at the 4400 block of Bunnell Drive, the scene they encountered was devastating. Both women lying near their apartment entrance, multiple gunshot wounds visible, no signs of life. The coroner would later confirm what officers suspected. This wasn't just a shooting but an execution. Together, Sequoia and Di'Asia had been struck by 13 bullets, the grouping and number suggesting not just anger but determined intent to ensure neither survived. Their voices, once filled with laughter and dreams, were silenced forever, leaving behind grieving families, shocked followers, and a community struggling to understand how an argument over something as trivial as car tires could end in such devastating violence. Sequoia Lamar's presence filled a room before she ever said a word. Friends described the 20-year-old as magnetic, someone whose energy drew people in and whose smile could brighten the darkest days. Born and raised in Huntsville, Alabama, Sequoia had been dancing since before she could walk, her mother later recalled. By her teen years, that natural talent had blossomed into a disciplined art form that showcased both technical skill and raw emotional expression. When I dance, I don't think about anything else. It's like the world goes quiet and I can just be. Sequoia once shared in a video that garnered thousands of views. Her dance content ranged from choreographed routines to impromptu moments where she'd film herself moving to whatever song caught her mood that day. Watching her dance, viewers could see that rare quality that separates performers from artists, the ability to make technical movements appear effortless while infusing them with authentic emotion. Sequoia's talents extended far beyond dance. As a hair braider, she developed a reputation for both speed and creativity. "Y'all look at the nails, get into it. Yeah, period. I had to give y'all a close-up on the," she exclaimed in one video, showing off both her freshly done nails and a complex braided hairstyle she'd created for herself, a dual showcase of her aesthetic sensibilities. Her braiding skills weren't just a side hustle but a genuine artistic outlet and a practical way to contribute to her household income. Those who knew Sequoia personally spoke of her determined spirit. At just 20, she juggled multiple creative pursuits while maintaining an online presence that was steadily growing. "I'm just trying to build something that's mine, you know," she told followers during a candid moment on her channel. Her dream, as she expressed it, was to eventually open her own dance studio where she could teach children, particularly those from underserved communities who might not otherwise have access to formal dance training. If Sequoia was the vibrant creative force in the relationship, Di'Asia Moa Morris was the grounding presence. Born on March 20, 1999, Di'Asia was 24 when her life was cut short, 4 years older than Sequoia and, according to friends, possessing a quiet maturity that complemented her girlfriend's more exuberant personality. After graduating from J.O. Johnson High School, Di'Asia had found steady employment at Aeropostale, where co-workers described her as reliable, punctual, and exceptionally good with customers. She never had a bad word to say about anybody, one colleague later told reporters. Even when she was having a rough day, she'd still make customers feel special. This ability to remain calm and kind even under pressure was something Sequoia often mentioned when talking about their relationship. In one video where they discussed what they admired about each other, Sequoia looked at Di'Asia with genuine affection. "She keeps me balanced, for real. When I'm going 100 miles an hour, she knows how to get me to slow down and breathe." Their relationship had begun approximately 2 years before their deaths. Friends recalled how they met at a community basketball game where Sequoia had performed during halftime. Di'Asia, attending with mutual friends, had been captivated by Sequoia's performance. What started as admiration quickly evolved into friendship and then romance, a progression they later documented for their followers once their social media presence began to grow. By early 2023, their YouTube channel had developed a devoted following, not just for their dance videos or Sequoia's cooking and hair tutorials, but for the authentic glimpse they offered into their relationship. Their Q&A sessions became particularly popular, with followers submitting increasingly personal questions that the couple answered with surprising candor. "What's yours favorite thing about each other?" Read one question from a fan. "I like how supportive she is," Di'Asia responded without hesitation. "Like, she'll drop whatever she's doing to help me if I need it. And she's funny as hell too." Sequoia's answer revealed the depth of their connection. "I love how she sees me. Like, really sees me, not just the stuff I post or the person other people think I am. She knows when something's off even if I'm smiling in everyone's face." Their living situation in Huntsville's Bonnell Drive apartments wasn't meant to be permanent. In videos filmed inside their modest two-bedroom unit, they often discussed future plans, saving for a house, possibly relocating to Atlanta where Sequoia believed there would be more opportunities for her dance career, and Di'Asia could transfer within the Aeropostale network. These weren't just idle dreams. Di'Asia kept a careful budget, and friends noted how they limited unnecessary expenses to build their savings. Next year this time, we're going to be in our own place with a yard and everything, Sequoia had announced confidently in a video posted just 3 weeks before their deaths. No more sharing walls with neighbors. The irony of that statement would later haunt their followers. The neighbor in question, Tyashun Stevens, had moved into the adjacent apartment approximately 4 months before the shooting. Initial interactions had been unremarkable, with casual greetings exchanged in the parking lot or when collecting mail. When exactly the tension began remains unclear, but by mid-August 2023, other residents had noticed a distinctly frosty atmosphere whenever the three encountered each other in common areas. The dispute that would ultimately turn deadly centered around car tires, specifically, parking arrangements and allegations regarding damage to Stevens' vehicle that he believed had been caused by either Sequoia or Di'Asia. Text messages recovered from Sequoia's phone showed her frustration. "This man really tried to say we scratched his car today. We weren't even home when he claims it happened." What might have remained a minor disagreement between neighbors took a darker turn when Stevens began documenting their comings and goings, taking photos of their parking positions, and leaving increasingly confrontational notes on their vehicle. One neighbor later told investigators they had overheard Stevens telling someone on the phone, "Those girls think they can just do whatever they want. We'll see about that." The weekend before the shooting, the tension escalated further when Stevens confronted the couple directly as they were unloading groceries. A resident who witnessed the exchange described Stevens' body language as aggressive, and noted that while both Sequoia and Di'Asia attempted to defuse the situation, Stevens seemed determined to escalate it. That confrontation ended without violence but would prove to be the penultimate chapter in a conflict that, just 3 days later, would end with 13 bullets and 2 promising young lives extinguished over something as inconsequential as where and how they parked their car. The morning of Tuesday, August 29, 2023, began like most others in the Bonnell Drive apartment complex. Residents left for work, children waited for school buses, and the typical rhythms of suburban Huntsville played out under the hot Alabama sun. For Sequoia Lamar and Di'Asia Morris, it may have been a day of content creation, work preparations, or simply enjoying a few quiet moments together before their separate routines began. What no one could have predicted was how quickly an ordinary Tuesday would transform into the final chapter of their lives. By 10:30 a.m., the temperature had climbed into the high 80s. Security footage later recovered from a neighboring building showed Sequoia and Di'Asia walking toward their apartment, shopping bags in hand. They appeared relaxed, engaged in conversation, unaware they were being observed. At approximately the same time, Tyashun Stevens was seen pacing near his vehicle, his body language suggesting agitation. The ongoing dispute over car tires, a disagreement so minor most people would have forgotten it within days, had been brewing for weeks, creating a tension that residents had begun to notice. They'd been arguing about those parking spaces for at least a month, one neighbor later told police. "It seemed so stupid to us. Just cars and tires and who parked where. Nothing worth what happened." What exactly triggered the fatal confrontation at 10:40 a.m. remains unclear. No security camera captured the initial interaction. What is known comes primarily from ear witnesses, neighbors who heard raised voices followed by the unmistakable sound of gunfire. The first 911 call came in at 10:42 a.m., the caller's voice trembling as she reported, "Shots fired at Teakwood Apartments. Multiple shots. Oh my God. I think someone's been hit. Please hurry." Within 2 minutes, 3 more calls reached emergency services, each reporting the same terrifying sounds. One caller, watching from a second-story window, provided the first description of the shooter, his running to his car now. Silver sedan. He's still holding the gun. "Please, there are 2 people down in the parking lot." First responders arrived at 10:51 a.m., just 9 minutes after the initial call. The scene they encountered would stay with many of them long after their shifts ended. In the central parking area of the 4400 block of Bonnell Drive lay the bodies of Sequoia and Di'Asia, positioned less than 3 feet apart. Initial assessment indicated multiple gunshot wounds to both victims. Despite immediate life-saving efforts, medical personnel pronounced both women dead at the scene at 11:07 a.m. The crime scene painted a clear picture of the violence that had erupted in broad daylight. Shell casings, 13 in total, were scattered in a semicircle pattern suggesting the shooter had continued firing while moving around the victims. Forensic analysis would later confirm that all 13 rounds came from the same weapon, a 9mm handgun registered to Tyashun Stevens. Blood spatter patterns indicated that some shots were fired after the victims had already fallen, a detail that prosecutors would later point to as evidence of intent. The area around the bodies revealed signs of an ordinary day violently interrupted. A shopping bag containing newly purchased groceries lay spilled near Sequoia's body. Di'Asia's phone was found several feet away, the screen shattered but still displaying an open text message draft to her mother. Heading to work soon, love Y. The message remained unsent, her final communication cut short by violence. As investigators secured the scene, Huntsville police immediately identified Tyashun Stevens as the primary suspect. Witnesses described seeing him flee in a silver sedan, and his absence from his apartment confirmed their suspicions. By 11:30 a.m., just 50 minutes after the shooting, authorities had issued a BOLO, be on the lookout, alert for Stevens, describing him as armed and dangerous. Stevens' escape appeared calculated rather than panicked. Traffic cameras captured his vehicle heading east out of Huntsville, avoiding main highways where law enforcement presence would be stronger. His cell phone signal disappeared almost immediately, suggesting he had either removed the battery or switched to burner phones prepared in advance. The methodical nature of his flight suggested to investigators that this wasn't a crime of sudden passion, but one with at least some degree of premeditation. Back at the Bonnell Drive complex, the community reacted with shock and disbelief. Residents gathered behind police tape, many in tears as they watched investigators work the scene. They were just so young, one elderly resident told a local reporter, her voice breaking. I'd see them dancing sometimes in the parking lot, practicing their routines. How does this happen over parking spots? By early afternoon, news crews had descended on the normally quiet community. The first breaking news alerts described the incident in clinical terms: double homicide in northwest Huntsville. Police searching for suspect. But as the identities of the victims were released, the story took on a new dimension. These weren't anonymous victims but a couple with thousands of followers who had invited the public into their lives through social media. We are investigating a double homicide that occurred this morning in the 4400 block of Bonnell Drive, a Huntsville police spokesman stated at a 3 p.m. press conference. The victims have been identified as 20-year-old Sequoia Lemma and 24-year-old Di'Asia Morris. We have issued warrants for 23-year-old Tyashun Stevens, who resided in the same apartment complex and is believed to be the shooter. We are asking anyone with information on Stevens' whereabouts to contact authorities immediately. Do not approach, as he is considered armed and dangerous. As evening fell on August 29th, the apartment the young couple had shared became the focus of investigators' attention. Inside, they found signs of the ordinary life that had been violently interrupted: breakfast dishes in the sink, a half-completed grocery list magnetized to the refrigerator, and Di'Asia's Aeropostale work uniform laid out for her afternoon shift. On the living room wall hung photos of the couple, their smiles frozen in time, unaware that their story would end with 13 gunshots on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning. News of the shooting spread rapidly through social media, where Sequoia and Di'Asia had built their following. Comments of disbelief flooded their most recent posts. "Please tell me this isn't true," wrote one follower. "I just watched your dance video yesterday." Another commented, "How does something like this happen? Over car tires? I can't process this." Within hours, the hashtag #JusticeForSequoia and Di'Asia began trending locally, as friends, followers, and supporters sought to make sense of the senseless violence that had claimed 2 promising young lives. Within hours of the double homicide, the Huntsville Police Department had mobilized all available resources to track down Tyashun Stevens. By late afternoon on August 29th, investigators had obtained 2 capital murder warrants against him, elevating the case to the highest priority. Stevens' photograph appeared on every local news broadcast, his face now familiar to thousands across northern Alabama. The silver sedan he was last seen driving became the subject of an interstate alert, with license plate readers along major highways programmed to flag any possible matches. As dusk fell over Huntsville, SWAT teams converged on the Bonnell Drive apartment complex. Officers in tactical gear methodically cleared each unit in the building where Stevens had lived, operating on the slim possibility he might have returned to gather belongings or hide. Neighbors watched from behind drawn curtains as armored vehicles positioned themselves in the parking lot, the same area where, just hours earlier, Sequoia and Di'Asia had lost their lives. The operation yielded no sign of Stevens, but investigators did recover valuable evidence from his hastily abandoned apartment. He left in a hurry, one detective later noted in court testimony. Clothes were scattered across the floor, drawers left open. Most telling was the empty gun case we found under his bed, matching the caliber of weapon used in the shooting. By the morning of August 30th, just one day after the murders, authorities had developed intelligence suggesting Stevens might have fled to one of 2 locations: Anniston, Alabama, approximately 100 miles east of Huntsville, or Columbia, South Carolina, where he was believed to have family connections. This geographic range complicated the search, stretching limited resources across multiple jurisdictions. Recognizing the challenges ahead, Huntsville police requested assistance from the U.S. Marshals Gulf Coast Regional Fugitive Task Force, a specialized unit with expertise in tracking interstate fugitives. The Marshals brought sophisticated technology and methodologies to the manhunt. Cell phone tracking revealed that Stevens' device had last pinged near the Alabama-Georgia border before going dark, suggesting he had either disabled or discarded it. Financial records showed a cash withdrawal of $800 from his account the morning of the shooting, his last traceable financial activity. With electronic trails growing cold, investigators shifted to human intelligence, interviewing associates and family members who might have knowledge of Stevens' whereabouts. In these situations, fugitives typically reach out to someone they trust, explained the U.S. Marshal overseeing the operation. It might be for shelter, transportation, or just emotional support. When they do, that creates an opportunity for us. That opportunity emerged through diligent monitoring of social media accounts connected to Stevens' known associates. A seemingly innocuous post by a distant cousin, "Family always comes first, no matter what," triggered alerts among investigators monitoring these channels. The timing and phrasing raised suspicions, leading authorities to focus their efforts on Anniston, where this relative resided. As Labor Day weekend approached, the investigation intensified rather than slowed. While many Americans enjoyed the holiday, law enforcement officers conducted overnight surveillance operations and processed forensic evidence. The Behavioral Analysis Unit developed a psychological profile of Stevens, suggesting he would likely remain hidden but close to support networks rather than attempting to flee the country. This assessment proved crucial in maintaining focus on the Anniston area. On September 5th, exactly 1 week after the shooting, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A convenience store clerk in Anniston recognized Stevens from news coverage, despite his attempt to alter his appearance with a shaved head and facial hair. The clerk waited until Stevens left before contacting authorities, providing critical information about the vehicle he was now driving, a black pickup truck rather than the silver sedan from previous alerts. U.S. Marshals established surveillance on a motel near the convenience store, confirming Stevens' presence through discreet observation techniques. Rather than rushing an arrest that might endanger the public, they methodically planned an operation for the early morning hours when the suspect would likely be less alert and the area would have minimal civilian presence. At 5:17 a.m. on September 6, 2023, exactly 1 week after the murders, the Marshals executed their plan. With tactical teams positioned at all exits, they approached Stevens' room. Despite the potential for violent resistance, Stevens surrendered without incident, appearing resigned to his capture. As one marshal later recounted, he just put his hands up and said, "I knew you'd find me eventually." Stevens was immediately transported back to Madison County under heavy security, the same journey he had made in reverse 1 week earlier while fleeing justice. By afternoon, He was processed into the Madison County Jail, where he would remain held without bond as the case against him continued to build. The evidence investigators had accumulated was substantial. Forensic analysis confirmed that all 13 shell casings recovered from the scene matched the 9mm handgun found in Stevens' possession at the time of his arrest. Gunshot residue tests on clothing seized from his motel room came back positive, placing him in proximity to recently fired weapons. Most damning was DNA evidence. Blood spatter on shoes hidden in his vehicle matched Sequoia Lamar's DNA profile, placing Stevens at the immediate scene of the violence. Digital evidence strengthened the prosecution's case further. While Stevens had been careful to avoid using his phone during his week as a fugitive, the device's contents before the shooting revealed a pattern of fixation. His search history included multiple queries about stand-your-ground laws and self-defense in Alabama, searches that prosecutors would later argue demonstrated premeditation rather than a heat-of-the-moment reaction. Witness statements from residents of the Bonnell Drive complex collectively painted a picture of escalating tensions. Multiple neighbors had observed heated exchanges between Stevens and the victims in the weeks leading up to the shooting. One resident had even reported concerns to the property management company 3 days before the murders, describing what she called threatening behavior from Stevens regarding the ongoing parking dispute. This report, tragically, had not yet been addressed when the fatal confrontation occurred. As investigators pieced together the final timeline, the senseless nature of the violence became even more apparent. What began as a disagreement over something as trivial as where tires touched asphalt had escalated into 13 gunshots and 2 lives cut short. The meticulous case building wasn't just about ensuring a conviction. It was about answering the question that haunted everyone touched by this tragedy. How could something so inconsequential lead to such devastating consequences? With Stevens now in custody awaiting trial, attention turned to the legal proceedings that would determine his fate. The evidence gathered during the investigation would soon be presented in court, where prosecutors would seek the maximum penalties available under Alabama law for the deaths of Sequoia Lamar and Di'Asia Morris, 2 young women whose promising futures had been violently stolen over something as trivial as car tires. The deaths of Sequoia Lamar and Di'Asia Morris shattered their families, leaving behind wounds that time alone could never heal. Sequoia's mother, Shamika, spoke through tears at a community vigil held 1 week after the murders. "My daughter was light. Pure light. She walked into a room and you felt her presence before she said a word," she told the gathered mourners. "She had dreams. So many dreams. She was going to open her own dance studio one day. Now all those dreams are gone because of something as stupid as a parking space." The grief of Di'Asia's family was equally devastating. Her brother, Dantes, described the horrific way he learned of his sister's death. "Nobody believed it. When she called me and told me that they found Di'Asia passed away and Sequoia passed away, it didn't register in my head." His voice broke as he revealed the traumatic details. "Up until we saw Facebook and there was a live on Facebook of their bodies on the floor, it was kind of hard to find out that way." This unimaginable discovery, learning of his sister's murder through social media footage, added another layer of trauma to an already unbearable loss. "She was like our Michael Jackson, you know," Dantes continued, trying to convey Di'Asia's significance to their family. "She was the star of the family. She was the star of the Fat Five. She's a family-oriented person. So is Sequoia as well. They were both bubbly, goofy, funny little girls." As both families struggled with funeral expenses, community support mobilized quickly. A GoFundMe campaign launched for Sequoia's burial aimed to raise $8,000. By the time of reporting, it had gathered $3,980, a testament to how many lives she had touched, yet still short of what was needed to lay her to rest. The financial burden of unexpected funeral arrangements compounded the emotional devastation, particularly for families who had lost their young breadwinners so suddenly. Memorial services for both women drew hundreds of attendees, many of whom knew the couple only through their online presence but felt deeply connected to their story. Mourners placed dancing shoes, hair braiding tools, and handwritten notes at a makeshift memorial near the spot where they died. Online, their final social media posts became virtual shrines, with thousands of comments expressing shock, grief, and calls for justice. "You taught me confidence through your videos," wrote one follower. "I never met you, but you changed my life. Another commented, your love story gave me hope. I can't believe it ended this way. The legal proceedings against Tyashun Stevens began with his first court appearance on September 20, 2023, for a felony examination. The judge would determine if there was enough evidence to send the case to a grand jury, a question that held little suspense given the overwhelming evidence gathered by investigators. As expected, on November 1, 2023, the case was formally presented to the grand jury, which would decide on indictments for capital murder. The prosecution's strategy focused on establishing premeditation, countering any potential claims of self-defense by highlighting the number of shots fired, 13 rounds that indicated intent beyond simply stopping a perceived threat. They also emphasized Stevens' flight from the scene and subsequent week-long evasion of authorities as evidence of consciousness of guilt. Stevens' defense team twice requested bond, arguing their client had no prior violent offenses. The court rejected both attempts, with the judge citing the violent nature of the crime and the risk Stevens posed to the community. The defendant will remain in custody without bond until trial, the judge ruled during the second bond hearing, as family members of both victims watched from the courtroom benches. By October 2023, Stevens was formally indicted on 2 capital murder charges. His trial was scheduled for August of the following year, setting the stage for what would likely be a high-profile case. In Alabama, capital murder convictions can result in either life imprisonment without parole or the death penalty, ensuring that Stevens would face the most severe consequences available in the state's legal system if convicted. Beyond the courtroom, the murders of Sequoia and Di'Asia sparked difficult conversations about conflict resolution and gun violence. Community leaders in Huntsville organized workshops on de-escalation techniques and peaceful dispute resolution, particularly in multi-unit housing complexes where close quarters can intensify minor disagreements. The property management company that oversaw the Bonnell Drive apartments implemented new protocols for addressing tenant disputes before they could escalate to violence. What makes this case particularly tragic is its utter preventability. The dispute that led to these deaths, disagreements over parking spaces and allegations about tire damage, represents the kind of minor friction that occurs thousands of times daily across the country without leading to violence. That such a trivial matter escalated to 13 gunshots and 2 lives extinguished points to deeper issues about anger management, conflict resolution, and gun access. As this case moved toward its legal conclusion, the legacy of Sequoia Lamar and Di'Asia Morris lived on through their social media presence, videos, photos, and interactions that remained accessible even after they were gone. Their dance routines continued to inspire young performers. Sequoia's cooking tutorials still guided novice chefs. Their relationship still offered representation and hope to young LGBTQ+ couples seeking examples of love and partnership. The senseless loss of these 2 young women, one a talented dancer and hair braider with entrepreneurial dreams, the other a steady presence who balanced and supported her partner's ambitions, reminds us how quickly violence can extinguish potential. Over something as inconsequential as car tires, a neighbor with a gun transformed what should have been an ordinary Tuesday into the final chapter of 2 intertwined lives. Their story stands as both a tribute to the joy they brought to those who knew them and a sobering reminder of how fragile life can be, and how essential it is to find better ways to resolve our differences before they escalate beyond repair.